GM, welcome to Web3 Academy, your one trusted source to capitalize on the next big phase of the internet. Don't get caught in the hype cycle. I'm Jay Bird, and I believe that Reddit is going to change the world. That's why I'm carving a path for doers to confidently build and invest in Web3. Welcome to another episode, everybody. Today, myself, Kyle, and TPan are deep diving on Reddit. And I'll tell you why. Mostly because Reddit has sold 18 million NFTs and onboarded over 14 million unique wallets into Web3. They are one of the largest crypto and Web3 on-ramps today. And so the question is how and why, but I think most of us know that story. We're going to talk about Reddit avatars. We're going to talk about how they got here. But most of us know that. That's nothing new. Reddit's been doing this since August when they first launched Reddit collectible avatars. So what is new is what's coming next. Recently updated their terms of service to separate the definition between virtual goods and verified on-chain virtual goods. And now there's speculation that they are going to roll out community points because on September 12th, they are sunsetting community awards and coins. Really confusing that they called it community coins. It's unfortunate. Community coins is a Web2 program that's been in Reddit for a while, along with community awards, which is a program that ensures that contributors in Reddit's ecosystem and communities get awards for their contribution. Well, there's a lot of problems with that. Wouldn't you rather, in return for your contribution, get a token, a fungible token, which then there's much you can do with that token. Maybe you have governance and voting rights in the community that you're in. Maybe you can spend that token in the community that you're in to buy merchandise or to buy advertising in that community. Or perhaps you can use that token to tip people in your community or to show your recognition to people in your community. There's so much you can do with a fungible token, or what Reddit is calling community points. Now, right now, only 2 communities have community points within Reddit. We're going to talk about today what is coming in the future and what we believe is coming in the next few months, because we believe that Reddit's going to get to 50 million unique wallets by the end of the year. Buckle up, everybody. This is the conversation you need to be listening to because you need to understand Reddit if you're in Web3 or if you're building in Web3, because they really are one of the best playbooks around. Before we jump in, let's just take a minute to hear from our sponsor. Enjoy the show. Modern newsletters are built on Paragraph. That's right. Paragraph is a brand new newsletter platform that combines the best parts of Web 2 and Web 3 to supercharge newsletters for both writers and readers. Build a community, not just an audience. Paragraph uses blockchain tech to allow readers to collect and own the words that matter to them. This takes reading a newsletter to the next level. With Paragraph, readers can mint, collect, and show off quotes from their favorite newsletters. This opens new possibilities like creators sharing revenue with fans. I also love their new feature, Paragraph AI. This integrates GPT-4 natively in Paragraph to create, edit, and improve your writing effortlessly with one click. And guess what? We at Web3 Academy are on board and have already moved our content over to Paragraph. We believe this is the future of newsletters because of the profound engagement it creates between creators and fans. So, whether you're a creator, writer, or an avid reader, it's time to check out Paragraph and capitalize on the opportunity of being early. We got an exciting space today. TPan's in the house, talking all about Reddit, what's going on over there. They are going all in on Web3 in ways that I don't even think everyone realizes yet. So we're going to be breaking that down because Reddit is shipping. They be doing. TPan, how you doing, my man?
Hey, congratulations on the little one.
You are. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Sure, things are busy on your side.
It's a wild ride.
That's awesome. I'm sure a very fulfilling one. Really glad to be here. Thanks for always having me. Excited to talk about Reddit in terms of what they've done so far. I know the Web3 Academy team and crew have definitely been following and covering what's been going on there. So excited to share notes, share thoughts, share maybe some light predictions in regards to maybe not alpha. I don't want to get too. I mean, Reddit isn't as much of a speculative, I feel like, sort of topic and set of collections and ecosystem versus your traditional NFT ecosystem and shitcoins and things like that. There are definitely some interesting things that are on the horizon, and also with their literally hundreds of millions of users, where there's a rich diversity of communities, a rich diversity of, ways that those communities interact, and a rich diversity of probably how Reddit will approach each of these subreddits, types of communities, personas, and even those that, for example, don't decide to engage in the new way that they're sort of rolling out.
I like it. Teasing many things that we're going to be talking about today, because there's just so many exciting things going on at Reddit. No alpha, maybe some speculation though on what's coming up. There will be some stuff, definitely some speculation, because I've got some thoughts on what they're doing next and what's going to be coming out from them pretty soon, I think, in the next few months. Kyle, what was your prediction that you made at the end or the beginning of this year?
Yeah, that Reddit would onboard a 50 million wallets by the end of 2023. I think they're at 14 million at the moment, or 15 million. So they're getting there. Not fully, but they're getting there.
Ooh. Getting close. We'll see. We're going to have to track that one closely. Things might be happening in the next few months that bring along more on chain if they do what we think they're going to do. TPan, you wrote a great article, so we're going to talk about that as well. All right, well, let me sort of frame the conversation today. We've done a lot of thinking around looking at the biggest brands that have come into Web3 and try to learn from them. What's the playbook? What's the model that they use? And how can other brands take that model and then replicate it? And we believe that Reddit has been one of the leaders, and the numbers tell the story. They're one of the leaders because they have brought on over 14 million wallets at this point. So clear that they are doing the hard work, but they're also one of the leaders in their strategy and their tactics and the way that they have done it. So we're going to talk about what Reddit has done so far today. We're going to talk about Reddit avatars. They just launched Gen 4 of the Reddit avatars last week, so we'll touch on that. And then we're going to talk about how has Reddit done this? What have been the steps that they have taken? How have they engaged and built a community in Web3 when they've got this Web2 social app? How are they bringing everybody over? What are the lessons that we can take from this? And then we're going to talk about what's next and the future of community point tokenization. We'll talk about the current communities that have community points, and then what we think might be coming out in the next few months. And then we'll get into each one of us will speculate and make some guesses as to where we think this will go by the end of the year. Kai thinks 50 million wallets. We'll get an update. Kai, we'll let you tell us if you still think 50 million wallets, or if you want to change that number at all, or where you think they're going to be at by the end of this year. So will be a great conversation about really everything that Reddit has done, but also understanding the playbook and what we all can use from this for any brand. TPan, before we jump in though, you've been on the show before. Always excited to have you back. But for those who don't know you, would love to have you just give yourself a brief introduction.
Sure thing. So I'm TPan, or otherwise known as Thomas, and I have a background on the marketing and growth side of things in Web2 tech. I'm based here in the Bay Area on the west coast of the US. I've been for some time. I've worked at different startups, big and small, doing growth and marketing related roles. Sort of the standard, quote unquote growth trajectory, right? How do you make number go up, especially on the consumer app side of things? For example, one of the companies I worked at was Uber. So really interesting stories, crazy times, a lot of best practices that were made during my time there. However, jumped into Web3 in early 2021 when things were really starting to hit the ground running in regards to very early signs of what mass adoption could look like. We're still to a degree in that phase, but with some stronger foundations. As a simple example, what we're going to talk about today with Reddit. And I just fell into it, just got enamored with the space, the dynamicism, just the diversity of people that are involved. Some of the smartest people in the world are tackling problems, building in this space, and I just fell in love with it. And so I just said, screw it, just gonna jump into this space full time. And I do that in a few different ways. One is being an analyst of sorts in this space. So I have a Substack called Web3 with TPan. It's in my bio. Check it out if you're interested in learning more about Web3 marketing and growth and frameworks, or if you're subscribed to 10 or 20 different newsletters that share with you headlines and want something a little deeper. That's what I sort of write about. I go 1 to 2 layers deeper in terms of peeling the onion on any specific topic. A little bit more leaning towards the NFT and Web3 side, but also a smattering of different things too. So hopefully just adding another angle on top of all the great content that's been created. Otherwise, I recently started at Ethereum Foundation. I have been sharing this pretty selectively, so not like, on LinkedIn or like a big tweet thread or anything. But in short, the team I'm working on is a small, scrappy team called Pollen Labs. We're effectively a product studio within the foundation, working to scale adoption. That's a little bit more consumer focused to share the types of applications that can be built using the ZK protocols and efforts that have been being built internally. So instead of just going to hackathons and sort of promoting all the different awesome work that's been done and things being built within EF, we're also skipping that step a bit and bringing it directly to the consumer with some products that we're building and ideating. So really exciting, pretty early stage, but there's going to be a lot more to come on that side. So working on growth and marketing as the growth lead for that pod and a few other things, but that's a short bit about me.
Congrats, TPan. I did not know about the new role at the Ethereum Foundation. That's awesome.
Yeah, very fresh and still, staying pretty low key about it. But, in random situations like this, definitely happy to share.
Love it. I love it. Doers be doing, and TPan is an ultimate doer.
Appreciate it.
Let's look back at what Reddit has done so far. Let me just give some numbers, and then Kai and TPan, I'll let you guys jump in and share your thoughts. So we know that they have minted over 18 million avatars. Reddit Gen 4 just launched, and I'm actually just looking at our dashboard and trying to see if I can get Gen 4 numbers. The problem is our dashboard is only bringing up Polygon because all the avatars were on Polygon up until Gen 4, and now it's on Optimism, I believe. So I actually don't have updated numbers. I'm going to keep searching here and see if I can find them.
No, that's just including all numbers. Gen 4 is still on Polygon.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Well, our dashboard shows 18 million unless Gen 4 got no... I guess it says 18.5 now, 18,500,000. So maybe there's only been 500,000 in Gen 4 so far, which is why it doesn't look like it's a big jump. But basically, to give you the overarching view is Reddit has done 18 million avatars minted so far. They've done about just over 14 million unique wallets of those. And we're pretty confident when it comes from Reddit that these are unique people, because in order to buy one of these avatars, you have to use your Reddit handle, and your Reddit handle is usually somebody that has created a unique profile on Reddit. So it's unlikely that there's obviously going to be some people that have duplicate wallets, but not a ton. And there's also been over 33 million in secondary sales, despite the fact that Reddit is not aiming to do secondary sales, and they actually don't make it very easy to do secondary sales because you have to take it to another marketplace. And we'll chat about that. TPan, what has Reddit done so far with avatars that has impressed you and given you sort of perked your interest?
This is a great question and a great way to sort of set the stage in regards to what's going on past, present, and future. And just to add on to the number of collectible avatars that have been sold or that are currently in circulation, and the number of holders or wallets, but probably a closer to 1-to-1 ratio to your point of about 15 million. Reddit MAU, they haven't shared public numbers here for a couple years. They've actually, historically, I think the last time they did it, they have like an annual recap blog post. So as of about 2021, it was estimated that there were about 861 million monthly active users, MAU, right? So in terms of a percentage standpoint, I mean, I'm just going to do a rough, like what's 15 divided by 860? That's 1.7% of the monthly active user base as of 2021, right? So this is obviously 2023. Assuming that number goes up, they're probably getting closer to like 1 billion maybe monthly active users, give or take, who knows, in terms of the actuals. But, want to stress that this is a very small percentage. So depending if there are certain tweaks made in regards to, how they continue to promote this, how they continue to encourage adoption of their Reddit avatar profile pictures, as well as digital collectibles, this number can increase quickly, significantly, and in other ways that we haven't really seen yet, right? So easy example, right? Completely, similar in terms of the fact that it's a social media platform and network, but obviously different in terms of the type of content and how it's structured. But Threads, right? Threads got to 100 million monthly active users because they basically vampired, or they basically just ported over a degree of their own social network, right? So very quickly, in a matter of days, that happened instantaneously, literally a couple of clicks. So, just take note of that, right? Numbers are big. They could be way bigger depending on what happens, or they could just be a slow and steady, sort of trajectory upwards. So in regards to these Reddit collectible avatars, for those that are more familiar with, Web3 native, how it sort of works, profile pictures, this is effectively Reddit's version of that. And this actually launched not a long time ago, but actually the fall of last year, approximately August or so. So almost a year ago. And this past week was the fourth generation, or the fourth wave or release of these Reddit avatars. And effectively, you purchase these. These are on Polygon. These are also in a custodial wallet set up by Reddit to make the onboarding process, the purchase process, and just how you can use these digital collectibles as profile pictures a lot easier for your average Reddit user, because they are not as Web3 native. So we've seen over the past year or so, this number grows significantly, a lot of thoughtfulness put into how these are positioned, and also a very sort of traditional concept in the tech world or Web2, but product market fit. And that's one thing I think is worth emphasizing, because it's been mentioned actually by the Reddit team themselves, but also with understanding how Reddit as a social platform, especially those that may not be users or power users of the platform, is actually very complementary to this digital collectible that could be a profile picture, meaning Reddit is generally anonymous first. If you go on a forum or a subreddit or a specific topic on the social platform, you actually see a lot of these usernames being like, I don't know. I mean, I don't like, doxing myself, because it's not fully doxed. And also I don't really use Reddit a lot anyway. But for example, this is a very old username, like 8 years old, but my username is like a toothbrush. Why? That used to be an AIM screen name I had as an alt for when I was in my teenage years. So don't ask me why. I just thought it was sort of funny, but that's my username. That has nothing to do with me. We all brush our teeth, I hope, right? But I think you sort of get the point, right? So if you're already anonymous, more or less by default, you rarely see any first name, last names, which is a little bit more common on like Facebook, even Instagram, other things, LinkedIn, of course, right? There's different types of incentives, and also this sort of affinity towards, well, if I'm already anonymous, I want to represent who I am, my interests, where I sort of focus more of my time on Reddit, maybe also have that be shown visually through that digital collectible or Reddit avatar. And people have been doing this by uploading pictures and whatnot, but this is much more native and also creates this ecosystem of supporting creators and contributors to that Reddit ecosystem, where they partner with various artists through these generations of Reddit avatar drops. So you start to see a diversity of not only the type of art based on that Reddit SNU, which is their sort of little alien character mascot of Quick. Yeah, and Quick, for those that don't know, SNU is actually named as such because Alexis Ohanian shared this. I saw it live a very long time ago on live podcast recording. But the whole point of it being called SNU was to have people say, what's new, right? So if you say that really quick, it means what's new. So Reddit was a place to share what was new, what was interesting, what was sort of maybe in the weird, corners or areas of the internet, to share animal pictures or, anime topics or whatever it might be, or cool art. So you start to see a lot more interesting representations of your sort of preference, interest, the art you like through these Reddit avatars. So I'll stop there, but hopefully that gives a little bit more of an overview of, one, how this really came to be about. Like, this is still relatively new, but it's not like this happened overnight, right? Two, what does product market fit even look like for this? And then also, three, a little bit more of the history and like what happens on Reddit that sort of leans to this eventual evolution that has happened so far as it pertains to Reddit avatars.
Yeah, thanks so much for that background, TPan. Super helpful. Kai, do you have anything to add on what you've seen Reddit do so far?
I mean, that was pretty detailed. I think the big thing that I've noticed with Reddit is in the way that they're using this technology is they're just using the technology in the way it's supposed to be. It's not, they've gotten rid of the whole speculative side of it, and they're just using it for something that people actually enjoy. Like TPan said, whether that's for the art or whatever, just to show off. And I think that's the whole purpose of this. And they're one of the first, I think, that have actually done this in that way and that have done it at scale. And so I think it's a couple of good things they've done. One, they haven't focused around the speculative financialization of the whole thing. And then two, just they've abstracted away a lot of the just like Web3 blockchain type technology, and are just using it for what it is, which is a PFP, and like a way for people to, show off who they are, what they believe in, etc. And I think that's why it's done so well. And it's created like a strong community within the Reddit world. And I think that's why it continues to do as well as it is. And I don't see any reason why it slows down.
The other thing that I think has helped them reach the numbers that they have is the price that they've set on these avatars. They're not trying to sell PFPs for 1 ETH or half an ETH, which were the ridiculous prices that we saw during the bull market, when you weren't buying a PFP, you were buying a part of a hypothetical metaverse company or something like that. With Reddit, you're just buying a PFP and that's it. And as TPan said, there's product market fit on that because people within Reddit value having a unique avatar or PFP when they're within Reddit, because it's part of their personality and part of their character and their identity in that space. And so they've been selling these for anywhere from $5, I think, up to $200, but only a very few. I think the majority have gone for around $10. So even that price indicates as well what the product is that you're buying. It's set at a price that shows, okay, you should only expect $10 of value from this, which that is fair for an avatar within a social media platform.
Yeah, I think that's a great point around the price points, where it's more realistic and where the future is going, and in regards to price points and supply and how that works with NFTs and what their respective goals might be. There might be certain trades or collections that will be very small quantity, but much more high price range to show how premium it might be, but also for the super fans. But for the masses, if your goal is to sort of have a brand proliferate, especially from an IP standpoint, the goal is to cast as wide of a net and accessible as a net as possible. So we're seeing a lot more of that leaning happen here, which makes sense. Much larger audience on Reddit in terms of absolute value. The other fun thing, and we've seen versions of it more on-chain, or at least within the sort of Web3 native side, but Reddit makes it more easy just with the way they created this and sort of built their sort of platform to support this, is when you purchase an avatar, it typically consists of several elements, right? So I bought a Cool Cats digital or Reddit avatar for $10. It was an edition of 2,500, and it's basically the blue cat character with a little Chugs, which is the little milk carton character. And there's actually 5 components to that. So one is Chugs, the little sort of friend that's a milk carton on top of the cat's head. 2 is the pants. 3 is the cat head. 4 is, I'm trying to look at it, it is the actual face and facial features that are very iconic for Cool Cats. And then the 5th one is the t-shirt, right? You could actually mix and match. So there's some version of composability with all these different traits. And if you have another avatar, you can, for example, have the Cool Cat's head, but maybe there's like this other accessory that you really like and actually layer that on top. So this is actually a pretty cool feature that Reddit has introduced to its Reddit avatar ecosystem. So if you're someone that wants to create a very unique character, you would actually purchase multiple avatars and then just create a very aesthetically pleasing sort of version that's a mashup of some of these elements. So, when you talk about that larger theme of co-creation or co-curation, this is actually happening, and it's very accessible to see how that even looks like, which is pretty darn cool.
TPan, when you purchased your Cool Cat, did you purchase it for the purpose of using it as an avatar, or you just try to experiment and experience this new Gen 4? What was your reasoning?
Yeah, a little bit of all the above. I wanted to see the purchase experience. I actually tried to get in on the Gen 3 avatar drop, but there was a fair amount of speculation at hand because that was when the sort of, NFT flipper community started to be like, okay, like these collections are going to, be worth a lot. These are like in gold, so they're going to be worth a lot, blah, blah, blah. And I think there's just a larger level of attention being brought towards it because you know how this space is on our side of town. This has happened in the past 24, 48 hours, right? The shit coins on base. L2, for example, but that led to a lot of sort of technical issues just when there's a large influx of demand. The checkout process was pretty messed up, etc. So a little bummed out I couldn't just genuinely experience it, but I wanted to experience this in Gen 4. I purchased this a couple days after just all the frenzy, which was just much more level-headed than previous generations. However, in Gen 3, I actually got a couple of avatars that were actually free. So they do this every so often where there's like additions of 100,000 for people that just want to experience the Reddit avatars without actually paying anything. And you can tell that these are actually on chain on Polygon because they have this little sort of on the bottom left-hand side, this sort of diamond symbol-esque thing saying it's on chain. So that was pretty cool. I saw it, but I just want to go through the purchase experience and also support cool cats, profile picture still supporting the cats. We love the cats. And just seeing what it looks like to go end to end on that front. And also see, potentially what happens with a brand like Cool Cats as it pertains to expanding their IP. But they're not alone. There's guitars by Micah Johnson. They had a collection. Several other sort of Web3 native artists also had collections. PR Guitar Man of Young Cat has had a partnership with Reddit for some time in previous generations too. So, there's definitely sort of this overlap slowly and even more so between the sort of Web3 native and also potentially the Reddit Web3 curious.
These partnerships are great because they enable a community to come into Reddit or a community that's already within Reddit to support a creator that they care about. And also enables an opportunity for creators to make money. Now, in the case of some of the partners, like I know that they've done a partnership with the NFL around the Super Bowl, like obviously they're not trying to make money there. But in the case of some creators, they benefit greatly from the opportunity. And I know that Reddit talked recently about how there's been about $1 million that has flowed back to less than 100 creators. So it's not like we're talking about a whole bunch of creators here. And this was before Gen 4. I also just want to mention quickly, you, TPan, talked about how there are some people selling on secondary markets, but it's not the focus. So like of the 14 million plus unique wallets, only about 50,000 wallets have interacted with Reddit NFTs on secondary marketplaces. So it shows you most people are buying these to hold them, not trying to speculate on them. Although, as you did mention, there was that one point during the hype when there was lots of speculation and you couldn't avoid it. Okay, I want to move on to what's next and community point tokenization. TPan, do you want to set the table for us here on what's happening with community point tokenization, maybe what's happened so far with Moon and with Brick, and then what we think might be coming in the future?
Yeah, sure. So tokenization and community points, to set the stage. Community points is something that was actually announced again about a year ago, back in August 2022, early August, so literally almost a year ago. And effectively, the rollout and the sort of goal of this was to create more value and to create a richer ecosystem around contributions that have been made in these subreddit communities. So as it is today, when you are, let's say, a very active and contributing community member for, let's just say, our Flash, which means like the sub-community cryptocurrency, because using them as an example, because they're doing some interesting stuff that will probably lead to some hypotheses and ideas from our side. You basically get karma, which is upvote. So that's great. Social validation is one of the better feelings in life, especially in this more technologically leaning world, right? Someone likes or retweets or comments or upvotes you on Reddit. That's good. And it's a feedback loop showing that you are providing value and people are validating that, right? However, at the end of the day, that's somewhat limited. And several years ago, in response to that, Reddit created something called awards, right? So this is something that is basically a richer version of an upvote. And sometimes those users who award those awards to those contributors might have to pay for that, or they use coins and things like that. However, at the end of the day, that's more or less just a richer version of an upvote to say thank you. So with that, community points were announced and sort of shared about a year ago. So what are some of these components? So one, these points are effectively going to replace these awards and supplement karma, which will still exist, right? That's the sort of Reddit native version of like something has value. So we'll go into more detail on that. Two, these community points can be used to unlock special features within that community or subreddit. So for example, you might have specific feature access, like you could create comments that are GIF enabled, while if you don't have enough community points, you can't do that. You can only do text-based as an example. You can actually have governance, or you could use your balance as a way to show reputation and have a little bit more influence when you're having community votes. You can use these points as a way to be prizes for community contests or content contests or trivia, things like that. So basically, over the past couple of years, actually, the cryptocurrency subreddit has been testing this. So this has, been happening for some time, and likely in some form of communication with the Reddit team, or the Reddit team has been monitoring this. So Moons are cryptocurrencies, community points, or sort of token. And this was actually launched back in 2020 on Arbitrum testnet, when Arbitrum itself was on testnet. But they were testing out these different incentive mechanisms and sort of building out better feedback loops to sort of understand how this could be rewarded, how people were using, how people were how the reception was towards such a thing. And basically, from what we can tell, this is going to be rolled out in a larger format. So how do we know this? A couple of things. One, it was sort of shared more internally on Reddit, but got picked up in larger concentric circles to a small degree. There was a sleuth basically noticed that in the terms of use for Reddit as a platform, they changed some language. What did they change? Specifically in section 5.1, I'm quoting this, they say, you may be able to earn, claim, purchase, sell, or give certain virtual avatars, goods, currencies, or items that can be cryptographically verified on a public blockchain through services in accordance with the previews terms and Reddit terms. So basically, you can start buying, selling, trading, whatever, Reddit avatars, tokens, if there are any in the future, things like that coming from Reddit, right? And this time very closely with the Ripple and SEC hearing that is still ongoing, but there has been some more clarity, it seems, that Ripple itself probably isn't a token based on how it was sold and things like that, maybe. But specifically from a secondary market standpoint, it's more likely, or it seems that it's not going to be the case. So Reddit changed from a timing perspective this language at a similar point in time. Additionally, one of the product managers or product leads made an announcement saying that they were reworking the awards system as well as coins and the premium subscription. So this happened maybe, 24, 48 hours apart. And this all happened after that Ripple SEC hearing. Not trying to just say like one literally led to the other, but the timing is notable. They were very close, right, within days. And basically announced what I shared about that system. They're actually sunsetting that starting September 12th. And they, TBD, are going to be sharing more details in the coming months about what will replace that whole system that has been around for several years. And from what we can assume to a degree, that may or likely will be related to these community points rollout that has been in the works behind the scenes for about a year now.
There's a great summary there for us, TPan. So much to capture. Love that you actually dove into section 5.1 of the terms. But Kai, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't have much to add. I think TPan basically went through everything there. I think these community points have been around for a while in terms of Moon and the bricks. And they've talked a lot about wanting to make this something bigger. And I think originally Moon and bricks, because this has been around for a little while, was on Ethereum, I think, back in the day. And then they had mentioned they were going to put it on L2. It finally went on Arbitrum Nova. And so I think they're finally at a place where like the tech enables them to go bigger with this. And then the fact that they already have the tech basically worked out in terms of their wallet, because they've now practiced that and tested that with the vault, as they call it, with the NFTs. It seems like they should be ready to start to bring this out to the masses, whether it's like everyone all at once or a few at a time, I'm not sure. But it seems like everything's kind of ready for that. And the infrastructure's all there. So we'll see what happens, but I'm excited for them to kind of get this going. I do have a question though, TPan, and we sort of touched on this in our Discord last week. Why does Reddit want to do community points? Like, what's the big benefit? Is it a big benefit to them? Is it just that it's an added benefit to the users? What's the additional reason that they would want this to be like an on-chain point system, and why they would get rid of all the other stuff and bring in this instead?
Yeah, totally. And we had a great sort of async conversation on the Web3 Academy Discord in regards to this. And I definitely have hunches, and we'll see if they do share more information about sort of that thought process maybe after it's rolled out, because it does seem like they are open to having certain members of their team talk to. There are some members on the team that shared a lot more background info, Reddit avatars on an episode with Carly Riley for overpriced JPEGs. Definitely recommend that if you're really curious to hear more firsthand about their point of view. Pretty interesting stuff. So if I were Reddit, right, first of all, I imagine this information is qualitatively and quantitatively data informed, right? So they have, I have to imagine, they've been around for, well over a decade now, have, hundreds of millions, if not closer to 1 billion monthly active users, billions, if not even closer to 1 trillion of sort of content data points with thousands and thousands of communities. And they have a very good idea of what their social graph looks like, right? Social graph meaning what is the relationships between different community members, communities, people who are in multiple communities, and how they interact, right? What is a high quality sort of user or community member on Reddit versus a low quality member? And also thinking through, okay, what's the next step? How does Reddit continue to grow? And I imagine some of that data is telling them that the next stage for Reddit to grow and be relevant, along with understanding where technology is headed, is providing some ownership and empowerment and autonomy back to the community itself. And that could look like the form of empowering these communities to provide them the tools of what is best for them in terms of showing what that value is. And they have publicly mentioned that product lead shared that in the announcement, they've received very consistent feedback about that awards and badges sort of feature. So people liked that because it was more than an upvote, but there were two particular pieces of feedback they consistently heard over the years. One, rewards were very cluttered, and they felt very cluttered. So if you've been on Reddit, you sort of see like a really good post or piece of content actually just has like next to the title, like all these little badges, like 5 or 10 or something like that. And you're just like, okay, cool, great piece of content. But like, what does that mean? Besides that it's good. Well, not that much, to be honest. There are over 50 types of different awards that could be provided or, gifted to that content creator or contributor, right? The second thing was that Redditors wanted awards to be more valuable for the recipient. Because if you receive that, great, you have online Reddit clout, but like, so what? What are you gonna do? You're gonna feed your family with that? Like, probably not, right? So I think all those data points qualitatively and quantitatively told them or suggested that there was something to be done here to provide more value and create potentially a sort of positive feedback loop to them. So hypothetically, what could happen here if you start empowering these communities like our cryptocurrency with moons? Well, you could create a more robust ecosystem, right? If executed and tweaked in a way that sort of makes it a win-win-win. So with the moons, right? And this happens today, and this is on their wiki. So they have like a moons R cryptocurrency wiki of like how it even works. What are some things you can do today? The history of their voting proposals and governance proposals over time. It's pretty cool because it's basically an archetype and prototype of like effectively a DAO, right? But like a Reddit-centric one, and also a sort of model for other large communities to be like, okay, this worked well for our cryptocurrency. This, didn't work so well, or this might be different because we're like an animal lovers focused subreddit, right? So like we have to, be thoughtful about how we approach X. But, people today could use moons for, as an example, obviously mentioned things like events, trivia, etc. It could be used just naturally for like tipping and whatnot. You could just send that over to other contributors beyond the standard badges and awards. You could actually use and burn your moons for advertising space on the subreddit, right? And this doesn't necessarily have to be a community member. You can be an advertiser and purchase moons and pay whatever that price is. Maybe it's dynamic, maybe it's flat to advertise there, right? Just as an example. So with that said, you are starting to separate, but show a very strong relationship between the token, which shows value to the community, but also how it could be externally valuable in terms of how it's permissionless, where, someone like myself don't use Reddit. I can just purchase that token, use that token in certain ways. If I were an advertiser, I can use that token in certain ways, either by purchasing it or by being a token sink, right? So this gets pretty interesting where, let's say, I think there's people are pretty, like Kraken's pretty active or like has a good relationship with that community. So let's say I'm Kraken, right? And I'm like, hey, we need more users, right? Or like, we want more people who are like X, so we want to promote this product. Well, you could, of course, accept, all the cryptocurrencies today or like a lot of the larger tokens. But let's say you're like, hey, we just want to, access this community, or like we want to do a promotion here. What if you accepted moons? Our cryptocurrency is, I don't know how large it is off the top of my head, but, at least hundreds of thousands, if not maybe in the low millions strong in terms of the number of users. Well, if you say, hey, we accept, I don't know the exact conversion rate here, if it's a lot or little, but let's say, hey, sign up for an account and also burn 1,000 moons tokens, and we will give you this promotion, right? Let's extend that to something else. Let's say Chewy, right? Pet food, pet accessories, etc. Very big company. Let's say they want to go to our all, which is basically like cute pet photos and things like that. What if they had a promotion where they were to accept, whatever their community's token is, let's say $pet, right? And they say exchange 10,000 pet for a $20 promo coupon, and we will also put you, in the running for a chance for your pet to be your pet's photo in awe to be featured on our homepage, right? So you sort of have the standard like promo strategy, but you also have like a little other carrot or like fun surprise and delight moment, for a very lucky individual or set of individuals. So you can start seeing this ecosystem being much more dynamic, aspects of that permissionlessness. And again, moons, going back to them, they had a very specific point that developers can build and accept and also, use that token, which is the whole point, right? Building a much richer ecosystem. So where does Reddit benefit from all this, right? Because I'm talking about the users, the contributors, the community members who earn that token and now have a lot more they could do with it, which is the point. And then you have like advertisers, ecosystem partners, other players that are like, wait a second, this is like potentially like a huge, acquisition channel or like a place where I could, test things out, right? And see what works or doesn't work. Pretty low lift, pretty low cost relative to spending like $1 million on Instagram, because everyone and their mom does that if you have a large enough marketing budget, right? So you start seeing a version of this, positive feedback loop where, well, to get more of this token, or if like the perks of having this token or being a contributing member are strong enough and enticing enough, you actually want to continue providing value back to that ecosystem that you can earn that token from. So our cryptocurrency, our comedy or jokes or whatever it might be, or are video games. So you start seeing this stronger engagement loop. There are going to be kinks, and I do want to talk about that later. I think there's a very good call out that I saw earlier today on Twitter. But you start seeing like how this could really be a win-win-win for the community, for, other ecosystem partners, whether advertisers or whatever else that might be. And then also for Reddit itself, at least in terms of engagement. And the last piece there is, if those advertisers and partners start seeing some version of success to the token, I think there's going to be also some version of them actually directly advertising more within the community as well, or being a more active participant in the community in certain ways. And we'll see how that evolves and looks like over time if this does really show signs of success.
I think even if Reddit doesn't make money off of these tokens anyway, which it doesn't appear that they're set to do any of that, I think what you're saying is it brings more attention back to Reddit, right? Reddit's entire goal is we want eyeballs on our content. We want people coming back to the Reddit website. And this creates an experience like really no other on any other social app. And like you said, it creates more engagement, probably more commitment because people can earn. And so people come back to Reddit more than they do any other social platform. And then Reddit can monetize that however they do, right? They have their premium product, they have obviously advertising, et cetera. I mean, all those things will benefit just from people coming back to Reddit more frequently, which I think is what these tokens are set up to do. So it's just a marketing tool essentially, and then a great UX ideally for all the users. So I don't know, that's kind of how I see it. TPan, would you agree on that?
Yep. Yes. I think especially, let's just say whatever, I don't know what they're calling internally, but like phase one of this community point rollout, right? Increase adoption, get a larger sample size of how people are using it, how the communities are using it, what ecosystem partners are either organically or either, from the sales side of things or BD side of things, like who you're talking to, what's their sentiment about that? Are like any of them actually just diving in being like, wait, this is like an amazing acquisition play, right? Like, yes, it sounds scary. It's a little bit of like known unknown, but like if we play this out and we're a first mover, like as a, again, I always think about from like a growth and marketing standpoint, like there's a huge arbitrage to be made, right? Like you're going to literally make news if you're like a larger Fortune 500 brand that like starts accepting tokens, right? And like from everything we can tell, especially in the US, like from a regulatory standpoint, like it's probably fine, right? This is the equivalence to a large degree, and this is my personal opinion, like this is like, Delta accepting, Starbucks rewards points, right? For, however they create their conversion value. It's just like not like a very strict walled network. And by the way, Delta does have a lot of partnerships, I think with like Airbnb, Lyft, whoever I just mentioned, Starbucks, right? Where like if you spend $1 on Starbucks, you actually earn, 1 mile on Delta Airlines. And like they're like the only airlines that does like beyond just I find it super interesting because I just wonder like their point of view versus like a United Airlines or something. Like Delta does these like cross industry promotion partnerships, while like your standard United Airlines does the standard airlines alliance thing, right? So like this is like not unlike that, where, there is arbitrage to be made, in my opinion. And another example of this that I always just think so fondly upon back in the day when I was more just like in performance marketing, for anyone that's been around for a minute, like when Instagram came out with ads, anyone that advertised on Instagram just saw like insane efficient numbers. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting so many installs or purchases or whatever because it was so cheap because you were much earlier, right? It's the same thing as like you bought this NFT but because like maybe it's public information, but people just don't do their homework or they don't put in the effort. They're like, wait, like A16Z, they raised 20 million with like A16Z leading this in the bear market. Like, I'm just going to buy this NFT because like everyone's going to realize the same information, and you're like, it's going to pop, right? Like whether long-term it does or not, that's a different thing, right? Same thing here, where it's just arbitrage from an information standpoint, where it's like public, but who's going to be a little braver to dip their toe in the water, right? So another brief thing, I just went on our cryptocurrency. First of all, they have 6.6 million members, I think, or something like that. A lot more than a few 100,000. So just, FYI. So again, if you're like crypto product and you accept moons, I'm not saying 6.6 million people have moons or enabling them, but like that's a big marketing play. Like that's really hard to ignore. If your goal is to like make number go up in terms of active users or like higher quality users, well, someone that's that's the other thing, right? Chances are someone that earns this type of token means that they're knowledgeable about that topic. They're a regular contributor to that topic. They provide high value content and high high value in the content itself is, high quality for the respective community members. So if you were to, market to people who have this token, chances are they're probably higher quality users in general. They're engaged with the topic, they're knowledgeable, they care about it, right? So let's say you're a video game, right? And you want to get more users that will likely be more active, and you have a really good game. Well, wouldn't you want to get good gamers, or people who, if you can hit it off with them, they're going to start promoting the shit out of your game, right? And for free. You more or less, you just accept their token for whatever it is that you want to do, get early beta access, right? And for early beta access, you want higher quality users, people who are more engaged, people who would give you feedback. So why wouldn't you want to go to Reddit to be hey, I want to accept this token because the people who have this token have a higher likelihood. It's not obvious 100% hit, but they're likely to be hardcore gamers that really care about gaming as a whole, right? So that's just something to think about as an idea. So going on the subreddit cryptocurrency, our cryptocurrency, there was actually a pop-up when I went there. So basically saying community points are on mainnet with 3 points. 1, mainnet means real blockchain. 2, earn and spend points like you do now. So you can use that currently, with special memberships, with certain features, within the Reddit community, things like that. Reddit pays the network fees for these transactions. So specifically within the community, within subreddit, right? Not if you want to trade, outside of Reddit. And then 3, tips require network fees because basically you're transferring or sending Moon's token to other contributors within the network. So it's notable that if you go onto our cryptocurrency on Reddit, that pops up, right? They're being very clear that this is live and is a thing within that subreddit.
There's just so much potential to this when you start to extrapolate out where this can go. Right now, we only have 2 communities with community points in our cryptocurrency with Moon and our Fortnite with Brick. What do you guys think happens for the next few months, the rest of the year? Where do you think we'll get, Kai? Do you think we'll get to 50 million unique wallets? Where do you see this going?
It's tough to say if we'll get to 50 million. I mean, the fact that we're at 14 million right now, unique wallets. I mean, we're halfway through the year, and that's just on the NFT side of things. That's not counting anything to do with community points. So can we double that by the end of the year? I mean, we're on track to do that. I'm not sure for sure if it will happen. We'll have to obviously keep launching new things. But so, I mean, maybe we can reach 25 million just on the NFT side, the avatars. And then if they actually do launch points in Q3, which is what, TPan is speculating on, I'm hoping they do as well. And it kind of makes sense they will, depending on the size of which, who they launch that to. I think that generates probably more wallets than the avatars if they actually were to launch this across a bunch of different communities, because some of these communities are millions, right? And of course, if you're a part of that community and you can earn value from participating in that community, it's a no-brainer that you're going to activate your wallet and start doing it that way. So, I think that the community points will bring in much, much, much larger numbers than these avatars. I just don't know at what scale they're going to launch that. So that's kind of the big question for me is what happens when they launch community points fully? Is it fully, or is it just to a few, and do they slowly let that go out? Because I think that's the next big thing for them. And I think it will bring in tens of millions pretty quickly. So we'll see. I don't know, but there's definitely potential for sure. They're definitely going to be the biggest by the end of 2023. The only one that maybe can surpass them is WorldCoin. Let's see. In terms of wallet.
Yep. That's a good one in terms of another contender for the rest of the year. Quick thoughts on my side. Overall, agree with what Kyle has mentioned. Just as a point of comparison, or just to think about, assuming things hold pretty steady, even from the Reddit avatar standpoint. Over the past 30 days or so, we saw the number of collectible avatar holder wallets go from about 12.3 million to 14.9 million, right? Not saying it's going to be exactly the same rate of growth, but it's been fairly steady. And if you were to extrapolate that about let's say 2.5 for the rest of the month, we could do the math. By the end of the year, we'd probably get close to, 25 million or more. There might be more launches, maybe larger brand partnerships, et cetera, that could accelerate that. And then to the point of community points, it very likely will not be all at once, but just giving a quick idea of the size of some of these subreddits, the largest communities. I already mentioned cryptocurrency is 6.6 million, and that's not even top 100, I think. Or that's, top 100, maybe top 80 or so. top 75. The first one is R Funny, 51 million people. 2 is Ask Reddit, so learning and education, 42 million members. 3 is gaming, 38 million members, right? Not saying that it's going to be like flipping on a switch, but, assuming a certain percentage of those are active users, assuming that, a certain number of the top communities activate and sort of really, thoughtfully, hopefully, bring this out, you sort of get this like a version of a like switch, sort of like how Threads went from sort of 0 to 100 million, right? But hopefully in a way where you start building a very robust and thoughtful ecosystem. And I think the last thing to consider is the quality of content. How does this incentivization just happen with, a classic example with gaming, 2021, 2022 with Axie Infinity, and, now they've revamped a lot of stuff, but like anything with incentivization, how does that change the quality of content? Easy example that may happen, and there will need to be guardrails, thoughtfulness, more rules set up to measure quality versus just like quantity here is like X, right? Or Twitter with, the creator royalties or sort of the revenue share here. So there are individuals and people who are just getting into all the replies and just trying to get as many impressions as possible to qualify for that creator payout. I respect the hustle, but, to what degree does that sort of decrease the overall quality of content, right? And like the value that you get from such a platform, that could happen on Reddit as well. So how do you sort of make sure the incentives are thoughtful and still maintain that high bar? So the larger these communities, the larger the number of people, not necessarily bad actors, but they just have different incentives and people who really want to just provide quality information and opinions and thoughts and content.
Well, one thing's for sure, we're all going to be keeping an eye on the rollout of community points, because I think that is just going to be a model for communities to bring tokens into the way that they interact online as we move from online to on-chain, and just tremendous potential within Reddit, outside of Reddit. I'm just so excited. Before we wrap here, I want to give a shout out to the Builders Collective. I see 3 of you guys in this Twitter space. Shout out to Solana and EpicSTAO. You guys are doers. We respect you. Thanks for showing up today. And TPan, I got one final question for you. Are you going to switch your Cool Cat PFP to your new Pudgy?
Oh no, you're seeing those comments. It's huge fan of Pudgy. I still like it's just so funny. I love the cats forever and ever. And I always give them credit for being the community that really made me understand the concept of, community and how important that is in general. And also especially in Web3. So it's always been very close. I'm a huge Pudgy fan. It doesn't look like it from the profile picture. We'll see. Let's just say I'm rooting for them big time. I definitely hold a decent amount of stuff. I'll just put it that way. Luca's the GOAT.
I love it. Well, we've got a report coming out on Pudgy this Thursday, so watch out for that, everybody. That'll be a good one, breaking down all of what they've done and what they've built and what's coming up next. Thanks so much for listening in, everybody. TPan, thanks so much for joining us. Always an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
Love it. Thank you for having me.
Have a great day, everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to Web3 Academy, your one trusted source to capitalize on the next big phase of the internet. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it and subscribe or follow so that you don't miss the next one. While you're at it, there's a link in the description for our free newsletter where we provide timely and relevant Web3 insights so you can confidently build and invest in Web3. Make sure to subscribe today. One final note. This podcast is for educational purposes only, and nothing we say is financial advice. Crypto and Web3 are risky, and you should never invest more than you're willing to lose. Thank you, friends, and see you in the next one.